This is conversation 6 with Aisling Doyle. She's the founder of Exist Better, and today we talk about the power of silence, what happens when you hold it, and what you can do to your own nervous system and that of other people's when you practice the art of silence. Hi Aisling, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Me too.
If I start with one question and I were to ask you if you had space to talk about anything today, what would it be? What would you say?
Well, it would probably be silence.
Yeah.
I'd say many people don't say that, but it's something I've always been drawn to and something I always wanted to work with. And I work with people and I do talk, but the more time has gone on, the more I've been drawn to, I suppose, a therapy where there is more silence and stillness. And that's probably the thing I feel most passionate about now.
It's hard. I've got lots of questions, and I'm also thinking it's like you almost want to honor the silence in a conversation as well when you're having it. So maybe that's a good question to start with. In a space where it sounds like silence brings something so very valuable, how do you build that into the way that you work with people, where we're so used to having conversations and unpacking stuff? How does silence play a role in the way that you help people, and what do you think the value is of it?
So I think probably if I go back to, getting into hypnotherapy, I use a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnotherapy. And, it's always helpful for people to talk. But I think, hypnotherapy brings in a lot of silence as well. You're leaving space for people to experience new ways of being, practicing, rehearsing under hypnosis. And I think holding that silence while they're doing that was probably the beginning of me feeling like this is a really powerful tool. And so probably now with my clients with hypnotherapy, I bring in a lot more silence into my sessions now. When they go into hypnosis, I give them more time in the silence to integrate what we've talked about beforehand and also what I'm bringing into the hypnosis. So, and I've seen amazing improvements with people. People are much more relaxed, seem to go deeper into hypnosis the more silence I bring in. I see people becoming more kind of regulated in themselves. So it's definitely improved the sessions in that way. So I've brought it into my regular practice in that capacity. And now I'm branching out into a therapy that is almost completely silent.
Wow. And how do people respond to the silence that you create?
To me, it is a deep release of pressure, stress, whatever they've been holding. It gives the nervous system that time to just release a bit, relax. And I do see people dropping deeper into it, sleeping better. It gives them a chance to step back from stress, anxiety. Silence brings up inner wisdom. So
Yeah, it really does, because we have so much inner wisdom, I think, and we also, I think our body holds so much intelligence that we don't tend to normally tap into unless we're very mindful about it.
yes.
And I'm wondering, and I'm asking this question because I've worked with a lot of people, especially recently, the conversations around regulating your nervous system and creating that sort of inner stillness. It's like, it's almost become a bit of a focus of mine, even in the last few months in particular. How do we help people cultivate it? Because I think we live in a really busy world, don't we? I think it's more needed now more than ever before. Like, you think about the amount of distractions that we have, whether it's like your I don't have one, thank God, but the Apple Watch thing on your wrist that keeps buzzing, or it's just your
Yeah.
phone, or 50 different platforms are giving you notifications of someone's like some random thing. Then you overlay the constant kind of forms of noise that we have, whether it's like the radio, TV, just general chatter. And then you think about the mental chatter that you have, let alone conversations, but what goes on inside. It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot of stimulus for anybody to kind of quieten down.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, I imagine finding silence in a noisy world has become increasingly difficult, especially for people that are in the city or busy or inside organizations that are working and surrounded by people. Have you found it for other people? Have they found it more difficult to create that space or to be comfortable in the space of silence? What's that like?
I mean, I completely agree. I was out for a walk today and, I could hear beeping. It is really hard to get to silence. In the world we live in, it is hectic and we are overstimulated. Obviously, I would say get out to the countryside as, far away from, life as possible. But at the same time, that is not doable for everybody. This is why I wanted to hold a space for people so that they can experience silence, but it can't just be, right, we're going to be completely silent, because everyone is so wired now. People take ages to drop into, relaxation in order to enjoy the silence and get anything from it. So the work I'm moving into is called presence therapy. And I bring in a lot of my skills that I'm using in other therapies. So I bring in the hypnosis at the beginning, a deep guided relaxation so that people can switch off and, I suppose, let go of kind of the day or whatever is going on in their life, stress, anxiety. They can just let it go for the first 20 minutes and sink down into deep relaxation, at which point, once I've guided them into that, it becomes completely silent. And then I hold a field of coherence. So what that is silence, complete silence, but I'm dropping into a state where I create an energy that will mirror to them and they can then regulate their nervous systems. And so this is what you would get from being in nature, away from everything. You would need, time away from everything to experience this kind of deep reset. But this is what we need in the world right now. We need access to therapies like this where you can drop into the complete silence and the nervous system regulation. And this is what this is. And I'm also doing silent retreats as well. So, it isn't just you have to have an experience with me, but this is a space where people can really experience this nervous system regulation in silence and allow their inner wisdom to emerge and healing to emerge. I'm not healing, I am a mirror so that they can remember their own alignment or coherence, however you want to, describe it. But at the silent retreats, I start with this so that people can get the most out of the day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you said something also quite interesting, which I was talking about this morning to somebody actually, is the idea of co-regulation. So I think there is something like really powerful when you're in a room, whether it's with one other person or a handful of people, and you're all having the same intention, because energetically it's almost amplified, isn't it? So the experience you get, and I suppose I'm talking from my own experience of being in spaces where you meditate in group or you're doing some of that energy work, it's palpable. It's more amplified than when you're on your own. How do the people that you work with, when they're in group, how do they report back around the experience of experiencing silence, but in a group setting?
Deep sense of calm.
Yeah.
A release, so your whole system relaxes. And needing to sleep.
Mm.
You know, after a period of, you know, prolonged silence, a lot of people need to have a lot of sleep because they've finally let go of holding on to everything, holding everything together. Their minds have gone quiet, probably for the first time in a long time, and their system needs to just reset. And so it can make you quite sleepy initially so that your body can start to heal itself from all the overstimulation and stress in life.
Mm. Whether, how that can transfer or be picked up by somebody else. And I'd imagine
Yeah.
you walk into a room and you'll feel the energy of the people around you, won't you? If somebody's feeling agitated, suddenly you feel a little bit uncomfortable. If there are people that are feeling really relaxed, you're almost put at ease without people having to say anything.
Yeah.
So really intentionally, I think managing your own energetic field can be a powerful thing, not just for yourself, but for people that are around you.
I once heard years ago somebody saying that it is a moral obligation to make yourself happy. And I think that goes for peace within as well, you know, kind of getting yourself to the good place. Because as you said, that ripples to everyone around you. The energy ripples, you know, you're holding a field that is impacting other people around you. So, you know, seeking out ways of getting yourself into regulated states or alignment, you know, is very important.
Mm, mm. And in the work that you've been doing, if I was to say to you, what would be the most surprising thing that you have come across? What would you say?
Oh, wow. Well, I wouldn't say this, it might be to other people, but the impact that presence therapy, this silence, has on animals.
Yeah.
We had a cat that was traumatized. It had been abandoned and it was very aggressive. And so I held this state for her. And, you know, she had redirected aggression, which is very difficult to treat. So I knew that we had a huge problem on our hands with our other animals and us. And after 5 sessions of just sitting in this coherent state with her, she was completely regulated again, no problems. So I think that's probably something I hadn't anticipated ever doing, was working in that state with animals. So I think that's maybe the most surprising. But other than that, I think it's maybe the experiences people have under hypnosis and in this silent state. You know, there's always stories that come up, people saying that they were floating, or, you know, they felt like they had left their body, or, you know, there's interesting experiences that are unique to every person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, that the cat sort of experience that you shared is interesting. I've never thought. It just didn't cross my focus is usually people. I'm fascinated by people. Like, people watch all the time. My work is all around observing people, and I didn't ever think like you could create that sort of support, should we say, for like an animal. But of course you can. Of course you can.
Yeah.
My dog Louis was one of my case studies. I spent a lot of practicing on him. Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's just making me think out loud. I did something similar. I have a 3-year-old, and she was having a tantrum a little while ago, and I basically sort of given up. But I sat there because I thought I didn't know how to handle the tantrum. So I sat there and I thought, I'll just channel a bit of Reiki, and I'll sit very still and see what happens. And after a couple of minutes, she also wasn't moving. So I looked across, like, above the pillow, like she's sitting on the sofa, and she'd fallen asleep at a time she wouldn't normally sleep. And it's making me think about something else I'd like to ask you, because all of this stuff, and I don't know if you feel the same, but for me, various alternative therapies or different modalities have had an impact or an effect on me. I guess my question is, how do you What practices do you use to help regulate your nervous system?
Well, mine is normally based, and I
Mhm.
meditate as well. So I start every morning with doing a kind of cycle of breathing, dependent on what day it is, but generally involves, long breath in, holding it, and very slowly releasing it, and holding it also on the exhale. Sometimes it's in sixes, or might be a longer exhale. 4, 7, 8 is a nice one that really gets me into a good state. And then I drop into stillness. So, I love meditation. I could do it all day. I really, really love it. So, you know, breath, stillness, grounding, consciously grounding myself. And also, probably my most important one is before I go into now anything, including a session with a client or meeting anybody, I take a moment to pause beforehand, take a deep breath, ground myself. In the past, I would have been very much just leaping into situations, and you know I'd be talking, but I wouldn't be,
Mm.
and sometimes then afterwards I'd be thinking, oh, I lost myself there again.
Mm.
So now I pause and make sure that I'm going into everything completely present. And also makes life more enjoyable as well, because I can remember all of it. Life is better, and just slowing things down. I don't have to talk a mile a minute and, be caught up in the moment. I can be fully present.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that pause that you talk about is definitely trainable.
Yeah,
Um, like if I think back like years ago, I was given a book called Finding Peace in the Frantic World. I don't know if you've read it, but it's very
I've
good.
heard of that. Yeah.
So it was like an 8 week, I think it was an 8 week program, and you read a chapter a week. It gives you a simple exercise. And some of the exercises were so simple, I kind of thought, well, what's this doing? Like one was like eat a grape, no, a raisin mindfully, and then notice all the
Yeah.
textures, all that kind of thing. But over the period of 8 weeks and doing these small practices, I guess daily, and the
Mm,
practices changed each week, but it really built a really good foundation, I think, for me, those years ago, about like how to slow things down, be really
yeah.
intentional, be really mindful. And, we can all get caught up, I think, in reacting when we're under pressure, or we're
Mm,
just caught up in the midst of day-to-day life, or you're tired, or whatever it could be. That is so very normal. Being able to train yourself through different practices, or using tools to create a ritual around your morning, or
mm.
breath work or meditation, or whatever that could look and feel like for you, I think can be a really good way to start exercising that muscle of mindfulness, and then
Yeah.
just allowing it to become stronger and stronger over time. And like with any muscle, I suppose, if you don't use it, you kind of lose it a little bit. So, and you can always return to it once you've built a foundation. It's almost like if you don't go to the gym for a while, it's a bit difficult, but you get back to it pretty quickly. So,
Like with
kind
the
of,
meditation, I think people feel like they need to sit, and you're meant to be doing, an hour, but you're not. There have been plenty of times where I haven't been able to meditate, any day, for a few weeks. But even when I'm making the dinner, I'll take time to mindfully cut up the vegetables and prepare the food. And that is a form of meditation. You can meditate your way through the day. So if you don't have time, which busy people always say, I don't have time to meditate, when they probably need it the most, but they can meditate throughout their day, making a coffee or whatever you're doing, walking, to your next meeting. You can be fully in that moment, and that is a meditation in itself.
one thing that's in my mind, and I'd love to ask you, is that what brought you into this work?
What brought me into this work? Well, in the past, I had struggled with depression for a very long time. I tried different things, nothing really helped until I experienced, I can only describe as a form of awakening, which led me down a path to having hypnosis myself and exploring CBT. I read a lot of self-help books and I started meditating as well at the same time. I think, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
That was kind of what woke me up. And that was the beginning of a journey into, I suppose, looking for joy outside of myself constantly, and started to search for it within myself. Also trying to get myself to a place of peace. And that was what kicked off everything. I then obviously trained in CBT hypnotherapy, which just continued the journey. And that journey then led into training in Reiki and Seikим, silence, deeper meditation. And here I am now, but it was hard, very, very hard at the beginning, but completely worth it.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it's something that so many people can relate to and not many people talk about. Lots of us, myself included, have moments in their life where either it's the pressure or something, life circumstances have felt really heavy.
Yeah.
And then you have to find a way to get yourself through it, whatever those circumstances are. And I don't think we spend a lot of time talking about what can feel uncomfortable to most people, because it's, even culturally here, it's a bit of a stiff upper lip. We must keep going. And, our conversations are usually quite superficial about how's the weather and how's your day. We're not really asking about how really was your day. And, once you create a bit of space, you hold the silence and create a bit of space for somebody else. You ask them that question, a lot can surface. There was a moment in your life that led you to kind of see things from a different perspective and then open up this whole world that can, not just only transform how you experience the world, but helps you to help others experience the world in a completely different way. And I think that is a gift, for other people.
Definitely. I wouldn't change any of it. It was completely worthwhile to get to the point I'm at now. I wouldn't even go back a day.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, isn't it? And I know lots of people don't like the word journey, but it really is a journey, if you were to rewind back to that moment in your life, I can think back to days where I found things really hard, whether it's during grief or baby loss or whatever it was, that moments in my life were hard for me. At the time, you don't see the path in front of you because you haven't trodden it yet. But, something will always evolve. It's almost like you can only notice it if you almost reflect and pay attention, and also not rush it, because I think, sometimes I'm guilty of how quickly can I do the next thing, especially when I get excited about something.
Same.
And I think there is something about, knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. You be at the right time at the exactly right place. That's where you are is where you're meant to be. And that's quite a powerful thing to do, or to I guess, to sit with. I think it will resonate with lots of people. I think lots of people feel things and struggle with things. Finding the tools and ways to kind of support yourself, regulate your own system, find that inner calm.
Yes.
Build that into your day-to-day, so you find ways to kind of support yourself and prevent anything from escalating. Or just completely. Yeah, I think it's such a powerful thing. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you don't end up in this work for, just because you thought it was a great idea. It is usually there is something that triggers you to go down a path like this. And it's usually something traumatic or, that has affected you deeply. So I think most practitioners, healers, facilitators can attest to something. There was a catalyst that led them down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. You're making me think, that would be a wonderful thing to follow that thread. What was people's catalyst?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd love to know. Thank you. I think talking about silence and bringing our awareness to what stillness can do and how you can create some of that room or space for yourself to regulate yourself, co-regulate other people, or help others to co-regulate together. It's such a powerful thing, and it's interesting that there are ways to do it, lots of practical and accessible ways that you can do that, but also
Yeah.
other ways that are a bit more deeply held and supported are also available. And I think, you know, just the idea, I know we talked about a 1-day silent retreat. I mean, that idea, maybe I'd come and join you on one, actually. I'd love to do that.
There's one on the spring equinox. Well, close enough to it, the 21st of March.
Yes. Andrew, I had one question. This might sound like a bizarre question. When you hold the silence, say, for example, we were at a silent retreat, can I talk to myself? Or that's not silence then?
Well, do you mean out loud talking to yourself?
You're not supposed to speak.
No.
Right.
So there's no talking, and there is also mindful eating, which is really, powerful as well with other people.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Because I think I talk to myself without even realizing, so that would be another that added dimension.
I love that.
If you could give anybody listening a little tip on how to instill a little bit of silence into their everyday life, what would you tell them?
I would just begin every day with 3 deep breaths. Pause for a minute at the end before you step into anything. Don't reach for the phone. Just prime yourself in the state you want to move forward in the day. I think that is the most powerful thing you can do, is to not leap into life the way you do all of the time. If you continue doing what you've always been doing, nothing's ever going to change. But if you that could take 2 minutes to have a few breaths and a minute of silence. That could change your day if you do it regularly.
Thank you. Really loved our conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.